What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another Martial Arts Monday review. As this week, I review The Deadly Duo from 1971. This is a film starring David Chang and T. Lung, and it's directed by the great Chang Che. That would technically make it a Iron Triangle film. The three of them worked together many, many times. This is a relatively early film, but what's interesting about it is you will see some ideas that perhaps Chang Che and the writer, Ni Kuang, who was the writer of virtually all these films, they would take and develop in films such as The Five Venoms. There's actually 5 characters with special abilities in this film, but they're not really the focus. They're sort of like the minions of the bad guys. And the bad guys in this one are quite good. You have the Emperor Chen Sing, who's played by Chen Sing, and then you have his sort of lieutenant or second in command is played by Ku Feng, once again. So very good villains in this. And of course, lots of other familiar faces as well. Stanley Fung shows up for a little bit as someone who may have some special abilities that could help our heroes, but more about that in a moment. So the film basically starts out in a time of rebellion during the Sung Dynasty. This time the invaders are the Jin invaders, okay? And they have taken a prince and many other people from the royal family, I suppose, captive. They are guarding him in a fortress that is only accessible by a very treacherous bridge, which will come into play a few times in the film. There's a couple set piece fights in and across and around the bridge, which are pretty exciting. This very treacherous bridge, which is actually the same bridge that has been featured in a few other Shaw Brothers films. I like a good bridge scene. I don't know about you guys. And essentially, T. Lung plays a character named the Flying Axe, who wants to rescue this prince. And the bad guys have an assortment of villains and seem to have superior numbers. They've got 5 different special fighters that have names like the Mole, I believe the Water Dragon, who's played by Bolo Young, who actually has some pretty good screen time in this. I would have liked to see more. And another one called Fireman or something like that. They sort of, it's kind of like the seeds of the 5 Venoms. And in the commentary, James Mudge talks about how the number 5 is very significant in these films and in Chinese culture and everything. If you go on Hong Kong Movie Database and just type in 5, you'll see many films about 5 heroes or so forth. But again, they're not like really the main focus, but you see some of the seeds of that. The Fireman is pretty cool because he's got this like device which launches these incendiary devices. It's definitely pretty cool. And David Chang actually doesn't show up till about half an hour in, and he's kind of associated with another character who's played by Stanley Fung, who might not last long. But they both start talking about, or the other characters start talking about how they need these guys because they have great lifting ability. So you're thinking, wait a minute. They have to get across this bridge that's sort of falling apart. So what is that what they mean by lifting ability? They're going to repair the bridge? This is where the commentary comes in handy. Because as James Mudge explains, that corresponds to their martial arts ability to do super heroic or superhuman feats. You know, we've all seen in these films when they jump up to a 3rd-story building and all this stuff, which is supposed to correspond to their, you know, I guess like the purity of their hearts and the effort that they've put into their training, their martial arts ability. Okay, it's just something that's accepted in these films, of course, as you know. So they mount, the heroes kind of mount a probing attack across this bridge that doesn't end well. It's pretty. I mean, after the first guy falls in, you know, when the second guy, you might want to stop. But no, they keep going. You know, what's the expression? Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice. No, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. 3, 4, 5 times. I don't know, guys. You know, maybe somebody else should be in charge. Well, T. Lung wasn't involved in that particular assault. They have to go back and tell him what a disaster that was and mount another attack at the end. In the meantime, we have many scenes that take place sort of on a beach area where the River Dragon, once again played by Bolo, will assault people on the beach and on these piers. And those scenes are very good. Just like in The Pirate, the scene, there's some underwater shots which are pretty good. They swim underwater and take apart these rafts from under the water and stuff. And Bolo Young has this giant hammer. Those scenes are definitely pretty good. Some pretty good scenes in and around the water. They probably filmed them very close to where they filmed the beach scenes in The Pirate, I'm pretty sure. Eventually, though, we get to the assault on the main compound across this bridge, and it's pretty exciting. The bad guys also have a guy called the Mole, who just will disappear in a hole in the ground. And I think he's played by Lau Kar Wing. He plays one of the five, who's the brother of the fight choreography, the legendary fight choreographer in this film and many other films, the legendary Lau Kar Leung, who does the fight choreography along with Tong Kai, I believe. So he would have a falling out with Chang Che, but that was years later. So we still got a lot of good fight choreography out of him. And it's very good. David Chang has like a weapon on a chain, a blade on a chain. There's some other pretty good weapons. Somebody has a pair of giant cymbals. They just look like cymbals that you would play in an orchestra. It almost seem kind of silly, but once he starts like chopping people with it, you're like, oh, ouch. So a lot of the concepts that you would see in later Chang Che films, like the Five Venoms, Crippled Avengers and things like that, would be explored here. They're just not as wild. The weapons aren't as crazy. The choreography isn't quite as crazy, but it's very solid throughout. And there's not much more to say about it. It's just a solid kung fu sort of martial arts film about rebels trying to rescue someone. Not groundbreaking plot-wise, but very solid. A pretty good film to watch for people who are not very familiar with the genre. Now, as far as a martial arts movie, the fight, all the action was pretty good. I can't. It's hard for me to remember off the top of my head something like really dynamic, but it was all very good. I guess I'll just go with the ways that somebody dies. What I noticed in a lot of these films, people will die standing up. So somebody doesn't quite make it at the end. There's got to be somebody who does a heroic sacrifice at the end. So sacrificing yourself and dying while still standing up is my martial arts movie, The Fight. As far as David Chang and T. Long, this is the role that David Chang plays as sort of this mysterious guy who kind of comes in about a half hour in, or may not have the key to getting across this bridge, is kind of a very good David Chang role. A little more typical than his role in The Pirate, where he was sort of the authority figure, He often plays a roguish or mysterious character that has like a sly grin, you don't know what his motivation is. He's just very good at that, and T. Long is very good at this type of role. So, solid film all around. What are your thoughts about The Deadly Duo? I believe it might be on some streaming services. If so, try to find the hour-and-a-half version and not the 80-minute version. I'm not even sure what they would cut out. And this is a somewhat bloody film, somehow still getting a PG-13 rating. Not quite as bloody or graphic as some later Chang Che films, but pretty bloody nonetheless. So, a solid one. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Come back again for another Martial Arts Monday review. Thanks.